back with us in the paddock at Albert Park, Melbourne. A perfect weekend for Ferrari, quickest in just about every qualifying session, and a 1-2 in the race as well. Michael Schumacher 10 out of 10. Barrichello following him home in second place. Alonso, Martin's driver of the day, up there in third. Ralf Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya, both Williams drivers, fourth and fifth. Jenson Button, hate to mention it, no podium again, but Jenson Button scoring 3 points. Trulli a couple of points, and David Coulthard making his point for McLaren. It's been a grim weekend for them, though, really. A lot of pace to find. Ferrari off and running then with a maximum 18 points. Williams 9, Renault just a point behind. BAR scoring 3 points here, and McLaren making that single point with David Coulthard. We're going to be going to the press conference in just a moment's time, but what do you make of that? I mean, a few worried frowns here behind us everywhere except Ferrari.
Yes, of course, but I mean, Ferrari had such a poor start last year. They were caught out a little bit by the regulations. The car was not particularly good in terms of adjustments, in terms of its performance. This year they've really done their homework and taken advantage of the new rules. And here they are, they've just come straight out of the box, galloping out, cantering through the park. Let's
see what Ross Brawn has made of it all. He's now with Ted Kravitz.
Well, Ross, a very nice badge I see on your fire suit now. World Champions Ferrari 2003. For the last 5 years, constructors, are we looking at another one this year?
Far too early to say, but obviously a fantastic start. I really felt that last year being difficult would make the team stronger, and I hope we're seeing the start of that today. But it still amazes me how good a job our people are doing.
You almost gave Martin Brundle a heart attack when Michael started dropping seconds every sector on the last few laps. That was just to save the car, right?
Yes, yeah, I think we knew what we were doing. No, I just asked him to cut the revs back. We saw Massa had a failure, and we got a little bit concerned about that, because he's using the same engine as us. So we had a bit of info on that, and we just asked the drivers to back off.
If you're not a Ferrari fan and you don't work for Ferrari, this might be a bit depressing, really, for Formula One. Can you see that, and what do you think about it?
I can understand perhaps McLaren or Williams fan will be a bit disappointed today, but I think there's a lot of Ferrari fans who are very happy. And it's really nothing I can do. I mean, myself, my team, I've got to do the best job we can, and that's what we're trying to do. It's really up to the others to respond to what they've seen today.
Malaysia will be quite a different test, though, won't it?
Oh, I think so. I think we'll be working a completely different temperature range with the tyres. Tyres were perfect today. But we'll be working in a completely different temperature range, so I think we need to see. I think the tyre wall will mean it is up and down. I'd be amazed if we were able to repeat what we did today at every race this year.
And just a quick final word about Michael. 6 World Championships. I mean, God knows now how many race wins. It just gets better and better.
Well, I think I said that he goes away for the winter, and you wait to see what he's like when he comes back. And he was giving me a hard time when he came back. So his passion and spirit for driving and his passion and spirit for the team is even stronger. So it is an unbelievable period. The way the people within Ferrari are working, it's just unbelievable.
Well done, Ross.
It's a great day if you're a Ferrari fan. And let's go straight to the press conference, shall we?
Yet another 1-2 for Scuderia Ferrari Marlborough. Michael, from the outside looking in, that looked like a perfect race from start to finish. Is that how it was in reality?
It basically was, yes. It was a tough one because in the beginning, I'd say first half of the race before Rubens faced some problems, he was pushing very, very hard, and it was really a close fight, and I couldn't allow any mistakes, and it was very exciting, I have to say. But, I mean, the car goes well. We have seen this all weekend long, and the great thing is, from my personal side, I come home with 2 more points than last year after 3 races, so that's at least a good start of the season for me.
Set fastest lap just before your second pit stop, and then slowed right at the end of the race. I guess that was all just part of the plan.
Obviously, after we saw Fernando slowing down, we all decided to slow down the pace a bit and save everything you can, because it's obviously new regulation. It's the first race in the season, so the confidence is there, but not maybe as much as if it would be the last race of the season, and therefore you just save everything as much as you can.
Thank you, Michael. Rubens, Michael said you had a bit of a problem there, but you were pushing him very hard in the early stages of the race.
No, we had a good half of the race fighting. I mean, the times were incredible. We were doing really good times, and it was just exciting. But I ran a little bit close to him when he had problems with traffic, and I basically my brake pedal started to go down, down, down. I faced the problem with the traffic a little later, and then he opened up a bit. I came into the pit stop, and he didn't cool down the brakes. As soon as I went back with a little bit more fuel, the brake pedal was really long. So I was just, if I kept on pushing, I was going to have an off for sure. So at that time, when he was already 6 seconds, I couldn't afford to do anything more. I finished really with a long brake pedal, so I had to give up at that time.
Thank you, Rubens. Fernando, we saw last year Renault making consistently good starts with launch strategy. Now it's manual starts. Nothing seems to have changed. Fantastic off the line.
Yeah, it was good to start. Obviously, I had a problem with Montoya, closed me a little bit, and I was with two wheels on the grass. But anyway, I managed to overtake Jenson and Montoya, and then it was an easy race.
When you say you managed to overtake Montoya, in fact, he seemed to outbrake himself going into the first corner. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, well, I tried to brake as late as possible. He was in the inside, in the dirty part, and he didn't brake enough to do the first corner. And after that, I was too slow to fight with the Ferraris, and a little bit quicker than Jenson and the Williams, and I was in the middle of nowhere, and I had not big problems.
A great opening race for Renault to beat Williams by almost half a minute. Is that the sort of expectation you had going into Melbourne?
Not really. You know, we came here with a good car. We knew that, but you know, I think we have 3 or 4 steps in the engine coming in the European races, and at that time, I think we can be competitive. For us, the 3 or 4 races, 3 or 4 first races, the target will be to take points, and this podium is much better probably than we expected at the beginning.
Michael, this may seem strange to you, but many people wonder how, with 6 World Championships behind you, you can be so motivated and so concentrated on focused on winning as you are. Can you just talk us a little bit through your thoughts over the winter and in the build-up, not only to this race, but to this season?
I don't think it is hard at all, at least from my point of view, to be motivated. I'm in the best team it's around. We have we have a fantastic atmosphere. It's Ferrari. And I have nothing sort of to win anymore to some degree, but I just love the sport. And I just love the fighting on the circuit, and it's natural to me. And as long as I'm sort of competitive and the love is there, I'm just doing what is easiest to do for me and enjoy it as long as I can.
It's like a record crowd here at Melbourne feels the same way.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd here was fantastic today. I mean, they cheered us up a lot, and so many people. Great opening race and season for us.
Now, if we could have a few words from you in your end.
You know, watching that, Tony, I just get the impression that every interviewer that talks to Michael Schumacher is absolutely desperate for him to go, do you know, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this. I'm leaving. Yeah, I have lost my motivation. Absolutely not a flicker of it.
But the thing is, after the last race in Japan, he disappeared. He went on holiday, and then he gets itchy feet. Then he goes off karting. But the thing is, he went into this European karting series. He was beaten by one bloke. So he went back to do another race just to beat this one bloke, to get back on top in European karting. And they wonder why he comes back at the beginning of the year like a spring chicken at 35 years of age and suddenly trounces everybody. He's absolutely on the top of his game.
As long as he has races like he had today, there's absolutely no question of him walking away, because at no stage in the race was any other driver putting him under big pressure.
No, and that is part of, you know, the dominance of Ferrari here in Melbourne, him feeling very, very comfortable with the car. And you have to worry when he starts to say, I've got a good feeling about this car, everybody worries. But it was late. It was a car that everybody looked at and they couldn't see what was special about it, but they have made it. It's a bit like the 2002 Ferrari. It's got a shorter wheelbase, it's got this new engine, etc., etc., and it's a winner.
If we have a look at the start, though, Tony, I mean, Alonso did absolutely brilliantly there. We wondered if he would without the launch control, but the Ferraris are away and gone.
Well, this was unbelievable because Alonso was He seems to be very, very good on the grass, doesn't he? He was put on the grass by Schumacher, British Grand Prix last year, but the best thing was, for him, Juan Pablo trying to defend that line down the inside. Now, here's a view from Juan Pablo here. Look at that. Down on the grass in front of Juan Pablo. Now, Juan Pablo sticks on the inside, the dirty side. He's just concentrating on defence. Misses his breaking point. And there's Alonso shooting past. Trulli takes advantage as well. And I think one of the Saubers there, Fisichella, that's where he ran wide and lost some time. And there it is, Juan Pablo in the Williams. That's where he lost all that time and all those places. But all those cars got off the line with manual starts, releasing their clutches brilliantly. And you can still see Juan Pablo there struggling over the curbs, trying to get some grip.
It's been a very tough weekend indeed, hasn't it, for Kimi Raikkonen, and in fact for the whole McLaren team. I know David Coulthard picked up a point, but Raikkonen was as upset as I've ever seen him, I think, after going out of this race.
Well, I think, you know, Martin and James were talking about it, that potentially Kimi Raikkonen should have been the world champion. Look, there he is, being troubled by the team which he started with in 2001. You know, and he started with Heidfeld. There he was, and the engine sees up. He was actually losing water temperature. Then the engine sees the rear wheels go, and off he goes. He said in one of the tests about 3 weeks ago, we'll be lucky to finish the Grand Prix in Melbourne the way things are going. Now, 4 weeks ago, they were going really, really well, and we all thought they should be a championship contender. When you think about the MP417, which they used last year, an old car which they developed, the MP418 was stillborn and should have morphed into the 19. They've had so much time, you wonder really what is going wrong. They do too, and I think it's a great shame for McLaren, because they should be up there at the front, right, you know, vying for a win.
Well, we might get an indication now about what is happening at McLaren. We can have a word with the man who won here last year, picked up a point this time round. David Coulthard, here he is with Louise.
David, a point is something to cheer long and hard about for some teams, but not really for McLaren.
Yeah, it's not, but you know, given our performance in the build-up to this event and also during the event, then that's what we deserve. We weren't quick enough in any of the sessions, and you know, even though I was behind Sato for a few laps in the early stages, I don't think he was holding me up that much, and the others were just gone. So at various points we have the pace, but it's not there on the first lap, and we're not consistent, so that makes it very difficult to drive.
After you saw Kimi going out, did you have any worries for your own reliability?
No. You know, I've been around long enough to know that a car can blow up when you think you've got no problems, and it can keep going, and sometimes, you know, it's quite often this happened, you have that thing that's never ever happened before will go wrong. It's just the luck of Grand Prix racing.
What did you think about the pace at the front? It was pretty hot, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly too fast for us.
Is that what you expected from the Ferraris?
I did the Imola test prior to coming here. Michael did a lap at the end of a 15-lap run that was over a second quicker than any of us. So, you know, I've been very realistic all winter. You know, I didn't buy into the whole, because we were out first on the track in December, that we had a fast and reliable car. You know, that's sort of people reporting based on a single lap time, but when you don't have competition there, the reality is we've been in amongst the field in all our running in the winter, and we have to improve, and that's what we're going to work on. You know, we're going to get heads down and get on with the job.
Do you think the pace of the Ferraris was particularly strong just here, or have we got to worry that they're going to be way out there in front of everybody at the other races?
Well, you've seen during the course of a season that things swing around quite a lot. Tyres are such an influential part of the package. Bridgestone have worked well here in the past. They were quick here last year and then went to Malaysia, and it was a different story. So, you know, people shouldn't be switching off their TV sets as yet. There's a lot of Grand Prix racing to be done.
Absolutely right, David.
Don't switch off.
Turn off. Yeah, no, I think that it's fair to first of 18 and all that, and it will come around. I'm sure it will come around. But David, batting well for the team, batting well for everybody at McLaren, but conceding a fair amount of hurt there.
Fair amount of hurt, and 133 Grand Prix now with McLaren for him. That beats the record of Lafitte had when he drove with Ligier team. So he's a loyal servant of the team, and he is very, very capable, as we all know. but he's concealing definite problems that the team have with the new car, and it seems to be in the handling, that it won't respond to setup, it seems to be in the engine. There's lots of things. That's why he was saying we've got to get our heads down. That's why Ron Dennis is saying we're going to have a real intensive test program up and coming.
We saw Pablo Montoya at the start there. He gave us great excitement during the race. A couple of typical Juan Pablo's overtaking manoeuvres. The first one on Jarno Trulli, Tony.
Well, there's the great excitement of the Colombian, and he'd been challenging there, and this was try and get 6th place off Jarno Trulli, and you know, he just went down the inside, committed himself, put his nose through, and away he goes. Let's see how smooth that was as well. That's remarkable for Juan Pablo, but this is what we love to see him. This is what is so exciting about him. And then closing in on Button. And we mustn't forget, of course, Button had to make way for Juan Pablo Montoya after the year 2000, because Button had made his debut here in the Williams BMW, made short shrift to that and got through. But Jenson at the time was having trouble, we think, with the tyres, and he was definitely getting slower and slower, and Juan Pablo just made him easy meat, really.
Right, 4th and 5th then for BMW Williams. Let's see what Patrick Head made of it all. He's with Ted.
Patrick, what are we supposed to make of all that?
Well, I mean, you can draw your own conclusions. I mean, obviously Ferrari were extremely fast. I think all the Michelin runners were suffering from heavy graining of the front tyres. It sounds like an excuse, but the cold temperatures mean these compounds don't work quite so well, so our lap times were up and down like a yo-yo, and just depending on the condition of the tyres. So anyway, obviously not an ideal start, but we got 2 cars in the points, and I think we're sort of a poor second in the constructors at the moment.
Juan had a couple of little slips in the pit stops, I think.
Yes, we had some trouble with the right rear wheel, I think, in the pit stops.
So does that mean that you'll be better in Malaysia?
I'd be very disappointed if we aren't. Yeah.
They're all expecting to come back in the heat of Sepang, and we have to underline here, Tony, that these conditions suited the Bridgestone tyres. They suited Ferrari down to the ground. I mean, we're here, it's a little bit on the chilly side, and the Michelin runners would have loved it to have been a few degrees hotter.
Yeah, they would. But conversely, what Bridgestone have worked on is getting their cars to work in the heat. Their tyres, rather, to work in the heat. So when we get to Malaysia, I expect them to be competitive as well. While Michelin have been looking to try and get their tyres to work when the temperatures are cooler. Yes, it's going to be very, very different. I think, you know, the Michelin runners were struggling a little bit during the race, and Williams very, very disappointed with that. This time last year, with 11 laps to go, Juan Pablo Montoya had spun out of the lead and handed it to David Coulthard. And they were very disappointed, and Patrick Head got hold of Juan Pablo afterwards and said, look, you gave him a good talking to. He said, but just get your head down. Let's go back to the next race in Malaysia. They could turn it around there.
Jenson Button started here on the 2nd row. He finished up 6th in the race. Let's see what he made of the Australian Grand Prix.
Jenson, congratulations. Points finish. It's got to be all you could hope for, really.
Yeah, it's great to be in the points and to finish 6th in the first Grand Prix. I've never scored it before, so it's not too bad.
You had those Williams hounding you for most of the race. I guess there was no way that you could keep them behind you, though.
No, the first one got past in the pit stops when we had a problem with one of the rear wheels getting it on, which lost me some time, and Ralph jumped me there, and then one was able to get past me on the circuit. But we're reasonably happy. We just got to work on our setup. You know, it's always difficult with a new car and also with new tyres. But a little bit more work, hopefully, over next weekend, and we can be a bit stronger.
Tell us about the start. It's the first time that you guys have actually had to do it yourself, wasn't it? How did it go for you?
It was okay. I struggled a little bit. You know, it's very slippery out there, and the only people that seem to be very quick were the Renaults. You know, compared to us, they still seem to have an advantage, which is quite strange when it's manual starts.
Very encouraging start to the season. Is this how you see it continuing as we get to the next race?
Well, I hope that we're going to move forward at the next race. We've never really done a complete race distance with these tyres, so now we know what they're doing in the race, and we've got a few problems, but you know, I'm sure we can solve them for next weekend or 2 weeks' time.
Are you surprised, generally speaking, by the reliability that we've seen this weekend?
Yeah, I know, it's a pain, isn't it? It's a real pain. I mean, we thought we did a good race, and to finish 6th, yeah, I mean, the Williams seem to be very strong, the Ferraris and the Renaults, so it's tough, but that's the competition.
Thanks, Jenson.
Thank you.
Well, Jenson's sounding very chipper there, David. As the boss of the team, are you happy with 6th and 9th?
Well, clearly nobody's happy until you're up on the podium and at the front, the top of the field. But no, a very positive start to the season. Reliability was one of our issues last year. Both cars to finish without any technical problems whatsoever. Honda have proven the point with their engines, and clearly we've got to work on the performance now. We've got to work on the speed, and we know the speed's there. The temperature dropped off dramatically today, and that really did affect the grip and the balance of the cars, and both drivers complaining of that. So when we get to Malaysia and it's stinking hot in a couple of weeks' time, it'll be different.
Yeah, indeed. Jenson was talking there about the Michelin tyres. You're still getting to know them. I guess it took McLaren about 8 months to get to know them, and I thought we saw that here today with the state of Jenson's tyres.
I guess there's a certain element to that, but I think we can certainly learn about them in less than 8 months' time. But no, we've learned a lot in the high temperatures, and you noticed yesterday the temperatures were higher, were right up at the front of the timesheets, and I think that's going to be the case when we move on to some of the hotter circuits.
What were you thinking when Montoya was closing in on Button like that?
Yes, we were sort of questioning what was going on and, you know, whether sort of what was wrong with the car, and it just turned out the balance of the car and just the grip was there, and but there'll be other days, I'm sure of that.
Thanks very much, David.
Okay, thank you.
BAR tested brilliantly in the winter. They've carried a lot of that form here to Australia. When you rejoin us, we're going to have a word with Ralf Schumacher. We'll respond to a couple of your emails and the result of the poll. You telling us who you think is going to be the drivers' champion at the end of 2004. A bit lively around all the Italian restaurants here in Melbourne tonight. A lot of Ferrari red will be flowing, I'm sure. Another Italian, Jarno Trulli, did pretty well for Renault. He finished in 7th place. Here he is with Ted.
Well, Jarno, the car looks good. That was a great battle you were having with Montoya as well.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for me, the car was damaged because at the start of the race, Fernando moved across and I had to brake, and someone hit me on the back. So from that time onward, I was really struggling with the car handling. It's a shame because I was looking forward for a long race, interesting race. Unfortunately, I only finished 7th.
Did the handling of the car get worse towards the end of the race?
It was pretty consistent all through the race, but in fact I was losing step by step some time.
What do you think it's going to be like in Malaysia, this car in Malaysia?
I think we will be more competitive. This is what we hope.
What do you think of the domination by Ferrari? I mean, I suppose as an Italian you're happy, but it's pretty depressing for the rest of us, isn't it?
Well, it's just the first race. We have to wait and see what will happen for the rest of the season. Ferrari has been always competitive on this racetrack.
Thanks, Jarno.
The heat of Malaysia will suit the Renaults, won't it, Tony?
Oh yeah, particularly as they're so kind to their tyres and the car is so keen aerodynamically. They're going to be very strong as they were last year. If you remember, Fernando was on pole, and that was the real start of the whole Renault renaissance.
Right, okay, we have the result of the poll, and well, what a shock. Michael Schumacher, 46% of your votes. You think he's going to win it for the 7th time. Juan Pablo Montoya, 32% of you going with the Colombian, and 21 for Kimi Räikkönen. Any complaints about that poll out there, Tony?
I just think Juan Pablo's not far behind there.
Yes.
You know, a lot of the public really believe that he can do it. And of course, Williams last year turned it around, caught Ferrari up, and made a huge contest of it. At the end of the year, there was just 2 points between the top teams. So of course they can come back, and Juan Pablo Montoya is the man to do it.
All right, your emails have been flooding in. Let's respond to a couple of them now before we leave you. And this one comes from Stuart Spencer from Livingston. What's happened with the proposed banning of driver aids like traction control, etc.? And you are one of the big champions of that. You want them out of the window, Tony, and get back to basics, don't you?
Yeah, I do, and a lot of people do it, and actually a lot of drivers do as well. But Stuart, what happened was, by the British Grand Prix last year, traction control and all the gizmos were meant to have gone. But a deal was struck basically between the FIA and the teams and the constructors and the drivers to say that if we can have cheaper engines that can go through the field to people like Minardi, then we will allow traction control to stay. And that's essentially what they've done. We've still got them, but at least we don't have launch control off the line anymore. They've got to do that manually.
Well done on that one, Tony. We have another question that's come in from Alan Parker. At Runcorn this season, 4 new drivers, so many new drivers. Are they a hazard, and do you think there should be a limit on how many are allowed in, Tony?
I think as far as Alan's a very good question, because there could be a limit and there should be a limit, but they have to pass, Alan, a very stringent test in order to get their super license. They have to cover a lot of mileage, and that means they've got a lot of experience in races when they're being passed and so on. There is a concern from the Grand Prix Drivers Association, and I think that they're going to watch new drivers very carefully and perhaps veto them if they don't behave.
Of the newcomers here today, Tony, how do you think they fared?
Well, I think Pantano did very well indeed. I think Klein did all right for a while. But you know, Baumgartner, he's two drives he's come back. Bruni, I think, did very well. I think because he tested last year for Minardi, I think he'd be quite good, the Italian.
And just overall summing up the race that we've seen here, is it the trend for the season, or will it change?
I don't believe it's the trend for the season. I believe the others will catch up. It's been a shock for everybody, you know, this double red victory, but I'm sure they will be back very soon. You'll see intensive test programs, and you'll see different situations in different temperatures with different tyres and different strategies, and we're still in for some surprises. It's very, very early. We've got another 17 races to go.
But you have to go away from here, not for the first time, touching our forelocks to Michael Schumacher. And from the moment he touched down here, there hasn't been a flicker in the man. There's been no sign of unease. There's been nothing at all. And he come through, and the moment you saw him, you knew he was going to come through here.
No question, but it's the continuity of that team. That team have been together for so many years now. Jean Todt put the great team together, and he's been there a long time. And then you've got to look at this car. Ross Brawn said, OK, we're going to make a conservative car because we don't want to make any mistakes, but just look at how beautifully sculpted the bodywork is, just how beautifully it handles. You've seen it looking beautiful today, and there it is, you know, taking the first place, and of course bringing the new car to the first race of the season. They haven't done that for 3 years.
OK, now then, next Sunday afternoon we've got a brand new motoring programme for you here on ITV1, presented by Matt Smith.
Join me next weekend for Speed Sunday, a brand new series to get horses racing. Speed Sunday will get you right to the heart of the world's best motorsport. Formula One, the World Rally Championship, touring cars, NASCAR, and much more. But it's not just the best action. There'll be behind-the-scenes features, interviews, competitions, and all the latest news. And you can be involved too by joining us in the studio or texting and emailing your questions to our panel of guests. In the first show, we're in Mexico for round 3 of the World Rally Championship. Jason Plato jets off to Vegas to discover why NASCAR is enjoying such extraordinary success. We look ahead to the Malaysian Grand Prix and find out how they pulled off those incredible stunts in the new Starsky and Hutch film. So join us next Sunday at 2 o'clock for Speed Sunday on ITV1.
Yeah, if you want to get involved, email your questions to speedsunday@itv.com. John Watson, Johnny Herbert and Colin McRae, the guests next Sunday. We have a rerun of this Australian Grand Prix this lunchtime at 1:30. Highlights programme is just after midnight. That's repeated tomorrow evening on ITV2. And a couple of weeks' time, round 2 in Malaysia. Full coverage from scorching Sepang, the hottest race of the year. Watch our coverage throughout the weekend. Schumacher and Ferrari are the fast starters. Albert Park, Melbourne, though, can be a little bit deceptive. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Well done. Catch us if you can. Ferrari's message. Bye-bye.
I get my kicks from the thrill of the chase. When I'm done, I'll put you back in your place. I'll be the memory that you just can't erase. Catch me if you can, 'cause I can't stop running, won't stop today. Leave me now, yeah. No, I won't stop when you keep running. Catch me if you can, 'cause I can't stop
If you'd like to know more about Formula One, the website address sponsored by the Daily Telegraph is itv.com/F1.